All right, welcome back. My name's Steve, and this is the second video in the intermittent fasting series. Today, we'll tackle the question of what is the best intermittent fasting protocol for weight loss. If you are new to intermittent fasting, or if you have not seen the first video, go ahead and check that out first. I highly recommend it. It will give you all of the background information that you need to get the most out of this video and every subsequent one in the intermittent fasting series. So with that, we'll go ahead and dive right in. To help us answer our question on which intermittent fasting protocol is best for weight loss, we'll turn to a meta-analysis comparing effectiveness of alternate day fasting 5-2 and time-restricted eating for weight loss. So this was published by Pascual and colleagues in Obesity journal in February of 2023. So a meta-analysis here is ideal to turn to just because a lot of the individual randomized controlled trials in intermittent fasting have a very small sample size. So rather than take just one or two randomized controlled trials, what the researchers did here was they analyzed 24 randomized controlled trials. So they took 24 studies, aggregate the results together. It's going to give us a much broader perspective and a much more clear picture on how likely we are to be able to generalize the results to ourselves and to others. So we'll start off with results for the time-restricted eating schedules. The one that they found to be most effective for time-restricted feeding was a 14-hour fasting window with a fasting snack of 200 calories. And allowing a normal 10-hour eating window during the day. So that actually had the best results and the highest overall adherence. What they achieved was a 6% body weight loss over a period of 8 weeks, about 1.07% per week, which for a 200-pound person is just over 2 pounds per week. So a very steady but still healthy rate of weight loss. Now, the second most effective was the 8-16 schedule, so allowing an 8-hour eating window, 16 hours of fasting. They lost 0.4% per week, which for a 200-pound person would translate to about 0.8 pounds per week. So the 6-hour eating window was the most restrictive one included in the meta-analysis, which for time-restricted eating was 4 studies total. The results here were weight loss of about 0.27% per week, which equates to about half a pound per week for a 200-pound person. So still not bad, still very steady, but slower than the other two protocols. They also examined a 12-hour eating window and 12-hour fasting window. So this one had really minimal weight loss achieved and minimal advantage over a traditional calorie-restricted diet. So a lot of people following time-restricted eating schedules try to be as restrictive as they possibly can to try and maximize their window of fasting. So there is some school of thought where the larger, the longer consecutive fasting time, the better. So to really assess to see if we can get more restricted, or if there's an advantage in terms of weight loss to being more restrictive than a 6-hour eating window, I did go ahead and check out the results from a randomized controlled trial by Cienfuegos and colleagues published in 2020. Citation is down in the description along with the link. What they found was that there is no difference in weight loss between a 4 and a 6-hour eating window. Actually, both of their groups had exactly the same result. Now, for alternate day fasting actually achieved the best result overall included, so that's out of 24 of the studies included in this meta-analysis, with the best protocol being a modified alternate day fast. So eating normally one day, fasting the next day, but in this case, it was modified to allow a 550 to 660 calories, depending on the person's individual calorie needs. So people who required fewer calories to maintain their weight would have the 550. Someone requiring more calories, either a larger person or more active, would be allowed up to 660 on the fasting days. So they narrowly beat out the 10-hour time-restricted feeding window, which achieved the 1.07% weight loss per week. They bumped it up to 1.08%. So not statistically significant by any means, but it was the best performing one in the meta-analysis. So for 5-2, it actually wound up being somewhere in between the time-restricted feeding and the alternate day fast. They didn't have any that really outperformed or any that underperformed. In terms of retention rates, so retention rates and compliance is important because we do know that adherence is the #1 predictor for success of any diet. If you don't do it, I guarantee you it won't work. All right, so by this metric, the time-restricted eating ranked the highest, 94% adherence. The 5-2 coming in second at 88%, and alternate day and modified alternate day fasting narrowly behind with an 85% completion rate. And so this is over the total period of intervention, which in this meta-analysis, most of the interventions were done for a period somewhere between 8 and 12 weeks. Some of them went as long as 26. There were a few that were shorter as well. This table is comparing the results of intermittent fasting protocols with caloric restriction. So it's only including the studies that use caloric restriction as a control group. All right, so here, if you look at the dashed line in the middle, all the way at the bottom, it'll say mean difference would be 0. 0 meaning that it's equally as effective as calorie restriction. All right, so what we're going to look at, we want to know the aggregate result of all the studies. So this black diamond here toward the bottom, we can see it is to the right of that dashed line in positive territory. So we can tell that. So for the alternate day fasting, the 5-2, and time restricted eating, all of them did have an advantage over traditional calorie restriction, although the advantage is slight. And here at the very bottom, what we see is all of those three results pulled together. So this does beg the question, what if we combine multiple strategies? So instead of just intermittent fasting or just restricting calories, what if we tried both? So what if we follow a calorie restricted diet on an intermittent fasting schedule? That's exactly what Arcero and colleagues did in their study, which was published in February of 2023. What they did was they got two groups. It is a relatively small study, so 41 total, randomized into a group following intermittent fasting and protein pacing, which protein pacing involves consuming high protein meals that are evenly spaced throughout the day, or in this case, the eating window, and caloric restriction. All right, so those are the two groups. Now, both groups, they were controlled for the number of calories consumed per day, as well as the number of calories burned from exercise per day. All right, so same number of calories coming in and being expended through exercise in both groups. but one group was combining intermittent fasting with a higher protein diet with smaller meals evenly spaced out. The other was simply restricting calories. So the diet was followed for 8 weeks. After 8 weeks, what they found was that the intermittent fasting plus protein pacing group lost almost double the amount of weight, nearly 2 times as much fat. They did lose twice as much visceral fat, which is significant given that. So visceral fat is the fat on the torso that is surrounding the organs. It's the fat that is most likely to increase your risk for cardiovascular disease, for diabetes, for cancer. And so in addition to visceral fat loss, they also lost specifically double the amount of abdominal fat. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe, comment below if you have any questions. I will get to every single question. Please share with your friends. I'm trying to help as many people with the channel as possible. And join us next week for the effects of intermittent fasting on heart health.